With 2 losses to 2 New Zealand teams into the Blues season, and there's not much of it yet, but there's a little bit of discontent about Tana's job at the Blues. I think he's still kind of on the right side of the ledger in terms of goodwill from Blues supporters, but it's not going to take another few too many losses before talk about his contract, which is up at the end of this year, starts to get discussed. So I've thought about who might be identified as a possible target to take over the Blues job, who might want the Blues job, and I've mostly had a look at guys who are abroad. There's a whole raft of Mitre 10 Cup coaches that could come through, but I've built this list on a philosophy that the Blues want a big name. You know, when they headhunted David Nucifora, he was a big name. They got in John Kirwan, who was a big name in Auckland Rugby. They got in Tana, a big name with the All Blacks. Pat Lam probably wasn't so much, but he'd been successful before. So under the idea that they're going to get a big name, and who are the other possible options around the rugby world, I've limited it to New Zealand coaches because apart from David Nucifora, I don't remember any other non-Kiwis coaching the Blues. And I don't see New Zealand Rugby supporting a non-Kiwi coach coming over. So let's have a look. The 2 top guys, Warren Gatland and Joe Schmidt, so Wales and Ireland coaches. Very well respected just because of the jobs they've done with both of those teams. Been in the jobs long enough. Both off contract 2019. So both taking their teams to the World Cup in Japan. But Tana's contract's up into 2018, so that leaves you with a gap. You've got 1 year. So either you're getting in a new coach to just start a new era at the Blues, or you're getting someone to fill in for a year until you can maybe target one of these guys. Whether either of those guys would want to come back and coach the Blues, I don't know. Maybe if they saw it as a potential pathway to All Blacks coaching, but I mean, that seems to be kind of being dealt with within the coaching team there. It looks like the whole succession plan, so Henry to Hansen, looks like it's going to continue in future, so it'll stay, one of the All Blacks assistants will get the job. But yeah, maybe one of those guys would want it, but not till 2019. How about some of these guys? Wayne Perfec, he's coaching Scarlets. He used to coach the Auckland Mitre 10 team. He's tipped to take over Wales after Gatland leaves 2019, so I think he's no-go. He's maybe got some of the reputation that people like, but I don't think he'd want the job. Vern Cotter, he is earning buckets of money at Montpellier. There's no way he's coming. He's another one with Scotland and with Montpellier. He's kind of got a pretty good rep. I think New Zealand rugby fans respect him a fair bit. He's just making millions of pounds at Montpellier, or euros. Simon Mannix, he's another one coaching in the top 14. He's been away from New Zealand for a very long time. I hardly remember him from when I was a kid. He kind of played 1 test for the All Blacks and played domestically here in New Zealand, but he's been coaching overseas for a very long time. Hasn't been seen in New Zealand parts, for that long that I think people would kind of be asking Simon who. Unfairly, of course, his coach of Powell, who are a pretty good team in top 14. He bumped them up from the 2nd division when he got them, so he's definitely got some skills. I don't think he'd want to leave, and I don't know if he would be one of the targets, possibly. Milton Haig, so he's the coach of Georgia. He's done a pretty good job with the Georgian national team. I read that he was the first kind of non-Georgian rugby coach, like head coach of the Georgian team anyway, to actually relocate to Georgia. Like other coaches just did it, they flew in when they needed to and flew out. He's based in Georgia, and his kids have grown up partially in Georgia, so speak Georgian and all that kind of good stuff. So he's really committed. He's got a pretty good record, but he's said previously that the opportunities in New Zealand rugby are limited and the money is pretty poor. So I think he's essentially ruling himself out of that. He might be one who takes that reputation he's kind of built up with the Georgian team and maybe takes a European spot if he's offered one in the future, like a club team. Kieran Crowley, so he used to coach the the Canadians. He coached them in 2011 World Cup. I think they did all right. Didn't do as well in 2015. Kind of left that job before the Canadians had a chance to shop around, and he ended up at Benetton in the Pro 14. So again, it's another pretty cruisy job. I don't think expectations are that high if you're at either of the Italian teams. Budget's obviously a lot lower than some of the big teams, but yeah, would he want to come to the Blues? Probably not. Maybe, depending on how his fortunes go in Italy. Would he be a target for the Blues? Again, I don't think he'd be first choice. I think your first choice guys are up here. Everyone else is kind of an also ran. John Mckee, so he coaches Fiji. He's a Kiwi technically, but he's spent a lot of time coaching in Australia, and he's been with Fiji for quite a few years. So he's more Australian than he is Kiwi, I think now. Like just the way he talks, he sounds pretty Aussie. So I can't see him getting a job. Would he want it? I mean, maybe he's been with Fiji a long time, that he maybe kind of sees that as his thing. It's really hard to know where these guys who take roles like Georgia or Fiji, you know, kind of not those tier 1 nations, but kind of where they see their career path going. I mean, Jamie Joseph again to Japan was another interesting choice, but I guess they see that there's some plan ahead of them, and they see how long they can go with it, but it's kind of away from the club scene. Jono Gibbs, up until yesterday, I would have thought he was a medium kind of candidate, but he's just, because he's based in Ulster at the moment, head coach there. He's got a pretty good rep from his time in New Zealand rugby. It's not that long ago that he was playing Super Rugby. So I think you know, he has enough kind of respect about him, profile, that fans would be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, he's a good appointment. But yeah, he's returning to New Zealand. He said that he wanted to, but he's just been announced that he's going to coach Waikato. So there goes that idea. Greg Cooper, so he's another one who's come back to New Zealand kind of for family reasons. Left his post at Stade Francais, so he's a maybe, just for the fact that he wants to be in New Zealand and the Blues are in New Zealand. Connection. Again, I wouldn't have thought he's the kind of a top 3 guy on their list, but you know, who knows. And then we kind of get into the assistants. So Steve Jackson, so he's had a bit of head coaching time with North Harbour. He's been Tana's assistant multiple times. So maybe if they were going to wait for one of these guys for a year and they decided not to extend Tana, maybe you give Steve Jackson the team for a year and see how they go. If he really does well, then give him the job permanently. But if he's average, then see if one of those guys is interested. And this is a really big if. Like I said, I don't think those guys are interested, but you never know. Who else have I got? So Glenn Moore has been a Super Rugby coach before. He coached the Highlanders, not very successfully. Kind of got shown the door to make way for Jamie Joseph a few years ago, quite a few years ago now. But he's kind of reinvented himself in the women's game. So he's the coach of the Black Ferns. If I'm looking at a 1-year role, maybe him, if he puts on the 2 hats, does the Black Ferns and does the Blues. Maybe he'd want to get a bit of rep back. It's unfinished business in Super Rugby. Who knows? Paul Feeney, so he's coached the Auckland Mitre 10 Cup team as well. He's coached them previously. Currently one of the assistants at the Stormers, you know, skills coach or assistant coach. His roles, I think, had a couple of different titles. But I'm pretty sure he's under contract until about 2019. So he's shown no signs of wanting to leave South Africa. He seems pretty happy in everything I've seen of him. He's really happy with the kind of the progress that these guys are making. Like I said, there's multiple guys who are coaching in the Mitre 10 Cup who have impressed. Some of them have got kind of part-time gigs with Super Rugby teams. But yeah, if you're going to replace Tana, who do you do it with? I don't know. I really think the answer here is that Tana's going to get at least a 2-year deal. I think if the Blues offered Tana a 1-year deal, that's kind of insulting to say, you've done all right, but we don't trust you to keep going ahead. But I'm also torn as to whether he deserves another long-term deal, because sure, the Blues have improved, but as it's been pointed out, like in the media and with some of the comments, that you know, all those improvements have been against the non-New Zealand teams, And the last couple of years, the non-New Zealand teams have been pretty weak. So it may not be that there's a big improvement from the Blues. It's just that the competition's been a bit sus. So we will see. I mean, the Aussie teams will provide a bit more of a challenge this year, having kind of consolidated down into 4 teams. Their trip to South Africa is going to be a heck of a test. Nobody's really picking the Blues to do much there. But yeah, I mean, I didn't spend like hours and hours researching this, but these are just some of the bigger names in kind of New Zealand rugby based abroad or based in assistance roles. So plenty of other names. Who do you think, who's the answer for the Blues woes? This is a question we've been asking for years. Who's the guy who's going to do it if it's not Tana? Or is it Tana? Do we just need to be a bit patient and give Tana a chance? Because as sports fans, we always want them to win and win now. We don't want to wait. So yeah, what do you guys reckon? The Blues have been a bit of a tragedy for a while. If anyone out there's got the answer, all those Blues fans would be very happy to know what it is. Anyway, guys, yeah, I'll talk to you again soon.